Good morning and welcome back to Other Worlds Wednesday here on Gaming with ADHD, where as we start 2024, I decided that I wanted to review at least one book from Palladium Books each month this year. But before we get into that, I figured that we should talk about how one makes a character for the various games put out by Palladium. So, while I'm not going to be making a character for each of the different games today, no one has time for that. I wanted to at least go over the process as it's described in many of the various RPG settings that Palladium has released. So, in other words, today we're going to talk about the ugly, the bad, and the good of characters in Palladium role playing games. All right, sorry, that was a tongue twister. But before we get started, do make sure you're subscribed to the channel. I try to put out a few videos each week covering all sorts of tabletop gaming content, whether it's role-playing, miniatures, board games, or honestly anything in between. And I'd love for you to come along and see what we have to share. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get started. All right. First up, I'm going to show you this. This is how I kind of approached this video. The initial thought was, oh, I can go through and we will figure out how everything looks. I realize you can't read anything on this, but I just wanted to kind of give you an idea that, all of the different colors represent essentially the same step in the process. For the different games, it's going to be anywhere from, or in the book, it will list anywhere from 6 to 8 different steps. I think sometimes I've even seen it as low as 5. But in general, as you can see, there are, the colors aren't consistent. There's the big green bar across the top. That's always for rolling stats at step 1. But that's not always the best. As you can see, there are different colors at different levels. Some are below others that you would find in other categories. So it's kind of a mess. It really does make it a little bit confusing when you are going from one game to the other. But everything is also there. So we will come back to some of that information here in a little bit. So first off, the other thing that I would point out is that your character creation rules could be anywhere in the book. I have seen them as early as page 7 or 8, but I've also seen them into I think Rift's Ultimate Edition has it at like 179. So making a character can literally show up anywhere in the book. It's confusing when you, like, me personally, I like seeing a little bit of lore at the beginning of the book. Give me a hook. Give me something that's going to get me interested in the game before you start throwing me into character creation. But, sometimes it's better to at least have it, I don't know, in the first, say, 25% of the book as opposed to, say, the back half. I don't know. It's very inconsistent. So you will want to make sure that you look in your table of contents if you wish to find it early or easily. But also keep in mind that there is some inconsistency in the table of contents. Sometimes it will be bolded. Sometimes it will be regular text. And you're not always looking for the exact same thing. So just keep that in mind, that it's not always going to be in the same place, and sometimes it's, going to confuse you. The next thing, as far as what I consider one of the uglies, is the rolling stats. Now, if you're just if the game centers on playing humans, like Dead Rain or Ninjas and Super Spies, if you're just playing a human, that's not a problem, because it's going to be 3d6 down the line. Come on, folks. We know how to do this. Three 6-sided dice down the line. But there's also going to be some changes even if you're playing humans, because some games If you have an exceptional stat on the initial roll, which means a 16, 17, or 18, you're going to get a bonus dice. Some games even let you get a second bonus dice if you roll a 6 on your first bonus dice. So sometimes you can get up to 2 bonus dice, sometimes only 1. It's going to depend on the particular game that you're playing, so you do need to make sure that you're reading that particular section for your game. In addition, there are other problems where if you're playing a game like Palladium Fantasy role playing, you have the different races like dwarves and elves, and all of their stats aren't going to be 3d6 down the line. Maybe you're going to have a 46 on your speed, or a 46 on your physical endurance, or 2d6 on your physical beauty, whatever it is. So in those cases, it's better if you've picked your race first so that you know what dice to roll. But in the actual character creation rules, they just start out by saying roll 3d6 for all of your stats. So there's some extra inconsistency there. In addition, the steps are rarely in an optimal order. All of the games are going to tell you to start with rolling your stats, but sometimes it's going to tell you to pick your class second. Sometimes it's going to tell you to generate your hit points in SDC. So rarely is there any kind of an optimal order. In addition, like for ninjas and super spies, your alignment determines whether your character is honorable or not, and that can actually restrict what martial arts choices you have. But for ninjas and super spies, alignment is actually one of the last things that they tell you to do. So if you're supposed to be picking now obviously you could pick your martial art and then pick your alignment later on, but sometimes picking that alignment is going to be a better option so that you understand what your choices can be. Another issue I have with the order is usually the second step is going to be to determine your hit points in SDC, but usually you're going to get skills or other bonuses like from your OCC that is going to increase your SDC or increase your hit points, or increase one of your stats, and that can then modify those derived values. So the ordering of making your character is definitely not consistent. So those are what I think are the ugly things. But what do I think are the bad things? Well, first off, not all of the steps are the same. Like I said, sometimes it's going to be as little as 5, sometimes it's going to be as many as 8 steps. But that doesn't even include that sometimes there are going to be things that are left out of the steps completely, even though they're still important. Sometimes alignment is listed as one of the steps. Sometimes it's just tacked on at the end, even after like the rounding out the character where you determine your height and weight and things like that. So, there's other things where some of your classes will just list out all of the skills you get. Sometimes it's going to give you programs and then you have to pick your skills. Sometimes there's just extra steps to determine what skills you can get. For instance, in Beyond the Supernatural, you're going to pick your psychic character class, which gives you all of your abilities, and then you're also going to pick an occupation, like janitor or policeman, whatever, and that is what actually gives you your skills. So I could be a nega psychic policeman, or a I forget the character classes off the top of my head, but I could be another a pyrokineticist dog walker. So you can mix and match those, which is actually kind of cool, gives you some extra variety. But again, it's very different from all of the other games where typically you're going to pick an OCC, which will give you your skills and your powers together. So keep those things in mind. Uh, Again, one of the things that can be bad is that not all of the steps are done the same way, whether it's rolling your stats or determining your SDC. SDC can be confusing. Sometimes it's a fixed value for your starting SDC. Sometimes it's a determined value that's generic. Like in Palladium Fantasy, it's 3d6 for men at arms for their base SDC and 1d6 for everything else. So if you have a fighter type character, you get 3d6 of SDC. If you have a wizard, you get 1d6. Other games, it's going to say, oh, you start with 20 SDC. So very, very inconsistent there. It's almost unique to each individual game, and in the character creation instructions, sometimes it's not even very consistent as far as like how it's worded, where it's read. I had to actually go digging quite a few times to figure it out. Like, which one was it? There was one I was looking at. I think it might have been After the Bomb, where the character SDC is listed at the top of the left hand page, but if you're not looking, you kind of miss it. Whereas in the bottom bottom of the right hand page, there we go. You'll start seeing all of the rules for SDC. So it's like, because it starts with the character SDC and then goes into hit points and regenerating hit points, and then it then gets into SDC in general, and it starts talking about the second type of MDC, which is for structures. And so then you have to go and dig and kind of figure out where that first mention of SDC was, so you can apply it to your character. Another thing that can be bad is that there are a lot of rules contained in the character creation section, derived attributes, like your actual speed. So taking your speed value and converting it into actual miles per hour. So if you're playing like a speedster character in Heroes Unlimited, well, how fast can your character actually run? Determining your saving throws, your IQ bonus to your skills, how much you can carry based on your physical strength, damage based on your physical strength, any other bonuses, rules for recovering hit points and SDC. Those are listed in the section for generating your hit points and your SDC. Sometimes they will also add a section that is considered a character creation step, which is just understanding how you can earn experience points and the experience point charts for all of the different classes. Because keep in mind, it's not like Dungeons and Dragons where everybody, when they hit 1,000 experience, moves on to level 2. No, sometimes you might level up at 900 experience. Sometimes you might have to wait till 1,500 experience to go to level 2. So again, it's you have to read that particular section. In fact, for all of the games, I do recommend highly that you read the entire character creation section, just because of how many rules are contained there that you will need outside of the character creation process. All right, so I have been harping on pretty heavily against, I don't want to say against, more just trying to make you aware of some potential issues that you're going to run into while making characters. But that doesn't mean everything is bad, all right? So I want to mention a couple of things that I do think are good. So first off, the character sheets are going to look mostly the same. Where is that? Let's change. There we go. All right, so we're going to look at some of the character sheets because I want to point out that there is some consistency. If I can make this look halfway decent. I know, folks. consummate professional around here. All right, so this is the... Man, my mouse. I'm going to stab my mouse today, probably. All right, so this is the character sheet for ninjas and super spies. So in the upper right, you're going to see basically your name, your identity, occupation, alignment. You're going to see all of your stats, age, sex, weight, birth order, education level. You're going to see all of your skills, any bonuses that you're going to get from your combat skills. So if you have multiple forms of martial arts, what type, how many attacks, damage, strike, parry, dodge, bonuses, any special moves that you get. There's, obviously notes. One of the strongest things about Palladium, which pretty much anybody will tell you about, is that once you make your character for Palladium, it's going to have all of the information that you need. Is there a way to rotate this? There we go. All right, so here's a Dead Rain character sheet. It looks a little different, but is still not too different. Oh, stop it. All right, so you're going to have your character information and all of your stats, saving throws. Then over here, you're going to list your weapons and equipment, any of your skills, plus any of their bonuses, what you'll get for each additional level. Now, some of the books, also keep in mind, won't have a character sheet, like Palladium Fantasy, Heroes Unlimited, Rifts. They do not include it. Nightbane actually has a few different character sheets. Some with, just extra information for like your psionic powers or magic spells. If you want to play a Nightbane vampire, not sure why your GM would let you. And then just also a generic one. After the Bomb also does not have a character sheet. Beyond the Supernatural has another landscape version. So again, there are the character sheets, while they may be laid out a little bit different, they are going to be extremely similar as far as the content that they provide you. Honestly, it's one of those things where it can seem a little bit daunting, but if you stick through it, you can get all of that information out. Some players will talk about how maybe it's going to take them about an hour or more to make a character, which can seem like a long time, but again, when you consider everything that you're putting into your character sheet, you're not just ticking off a couple of boxes. Especially when it comes to skills, like D&D only gives you like a few skills that, if you have it, you get a bonus, and that's it. Whereas this listed out, all of them have a percentage of which that determines how proficient you are with the particular skill, things like that. So it's definitely something that you do need to keep that in mind. All right. Now, is there an optimal way to make a character? Maybe. I know. Completely consistent here. So when I was going through all of this, looking at the chart, you can see, there is some consistency to the color. So what I did is I looked at everything, kind of figured out where it was and where I would recommend that you put it. Okay. The first thing that I would actually recommend And I guess we'll zoom in. So the first thing that I would recommend is, if it's available, pick a race before rolling your stats. Okay, determine if you're going to play a dwarf, an elf, whatever, and then roll your stats. That way, you know what kind of a character or what your stats are supposed to be for that kind of a character. Next thing, I'm going to recommend that you choose your alignment. Some games have alignment restrictions for classes. In addition, like I said, with ninjas and super spies, that determines your honor. So principled, scrupulous, and aberrant are all honorable classes. Yes, aberrant is one of the evil alignments, but even though you are mean, you are still, trying to do it, is according to your sense of honor. You're not trying to do things dishonorably. Just not very nice. So I do recommend picking the alignment first. It's a very simple step that can be taken. And then, like I said, it can help you determine other things, such as martial arts that you're going to take. The next thing I would say is to pick your OCC, RCC, PCC, and skills. OCC, RCC, PCC, those are sort of interchangeable terms. OCC is an occupational character class. RCC is a racial character class. So it goes back to kind of the old school Dungeons and Dragons, where you were playing a halfling or a elf or a dwarf. So it's race as class. And then PCC is a psychic character class. You're going to see that mostly in Nightbane, but you can see it in not Nightbane. No, you can see it in Nightbane as well. Oh, that's so many inconsistencies. You can see it in Nightbane and Beyond the Supernatural, and then determine your skills. So why am I telling you to determine your OCC and skills here? Well, that's because your skills can modify your attributes. It can modify the any additional bonuses that you get. So I would recommend doing that before you go through and determine your hit points and your SDC, or your MDC if you're playing in an MDC setting and you have an MDC race. So that's the order I would pick there. Next, I would say go with your psionics in Rifts Chaos Earth, Palladium Fantasy, and at least a couple of others. They do have options for psionic characters, so go ahead and determine that. Basically, it's going to usually be a dice roll. 1 to 10 is usually a major psionic. 11 to 25 or 35, depending on the book. Again, read the instructions. Will be a minor psionic, and anything outside of that is going to be non-psionic. So basically, it's a little extra boost for your character. And then the last step would be rounding out your character, spending your money. I'd put the advancement in here just because I do think it is still a good thing to understand how your character is going to be leveling up. Although, if you notice, I didn't color it in, so you can kind of skip over that section as far as making your character, but do still make sure you read it. Now, some games do have some exceptions where you may need to add 1 or 2 steps. After the bomb, for instance, you need to pick your animal type, and then you also need to build your mutant animal by spending the bio-E that's available. And what was the other one? Oh, and in Heroes Unlimited, was it Heroes? No, it was Ninjas and Super Spies, again, the martial art, because there are exclusive forms that if you want to take the exclusive form, you can only do so if you are a dedicated martial artist. So that would be something you would want to determine before you pick your OCC. So again, there are a couple of exceptions. Read the rules and you'll kind of understand it. But overall, I think those are your key steps. Is pick your race, roll your attributes, choose your alignment, pick your class and determine your skills, determine your hit points and SDC, psionics, and then round out your character. So, um, honestly, at the end of the day, I do still think that Palladium is fun. It is interesting to actually see the variety, see the different things that they've tried to do with the different games. Some of them, your mileage may vary, but overall, the character creation process for Palladium, while it can be convoluted, while it can be complicated, while you may pound your head on the table from time to time, at the end of the day, it's going to give you a great role playing experience because it does lay it out and it gives you everything that you need to play. So, with that said, I do hope you enjoyed the video. If you watched it this long, I hope you enjoyed it and would give it a thumbs up. If you're new here, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Like I said, I'm going to be doing some reviews of Palladium books throughout the year, and I'd love for you to come along, see what we have to share. And in that case, there are going to be links down below to Drive Through RPG, where it's an affiliate link and it does give a little bit back to the channel if you are interested. But other than that, thank you so much for watching. Appreciate your time, and we will talk to you next time.